The truth of it, Eric, is that without construction, there is no economy in California. We are the foundation on which the entire economy of California is built upon. We are Industry 1. You cannot have farms, you cannot have Hollywood, you cannot have a Facebook if you don't have the infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, all that allows people to do the work they do.
This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Welcome to Construction Genius. I'm Eric Anderton. Joining me on today's show is Peter Tateishi, the CEO of Associated General Contractors of California. We are going to be having a discussion about why the construction industry is foundational to the success of California. I think you'll find this discussion extremely insightful, particularly in light of how the AGC of California is executing its mission in a very practical way to shape and to influence how the construction industry is perceived and how the membership of the AGC is able to leverage its influence to increase the positive impact of construction organizations. A couple of takeaways I'd like you to focus on today is the clarity of the AGC of California's mission statement, and I'd like you to think about how clear your mission statement is, and also how actionable your mission statement is. In other words, are you bringing your mission statement to life in the way that you behave on a daily basis? So those are some takeaways in terms of your leadership, but also Peter and I get into a wide-ranging discussion about how vital the construction industry is to California, how AGC member companies strengthen California, and how the construction industry gives people an opportunity to experience challenge, teamwork, and camaraderie, and what construction leaders can do to lend their voice to the promotion of the construction industry in the world's sixth largest economy, which is the great state of California. So join me for the show today. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. It's my pleasure to welcome to Construction Genius, Peter Tateishi, CEO of AGC of California. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today, Eric.
Well, it's terrific to have you here. I know, you and I have known each other for a number of years, and I've seen you heavily involved in a number of different construction organizations. And you've recently become the CEO of AGC of California. How long ago was that?
A little over a year ago, I joined in January of 2018.
That's beautiful. So here we are in April 2019. What was the biggest change or the biggest thing that's happened at AGC of California since you've been involved?
Well, I think when I took over in January of last year, there was an opportunity to really look at kind of the history of AGC. It's been a storied organization that was at that time turning 98 years old and was really looking towards the future. And so as we saw an opportunity with 2020 being the centennial year for AGC of California, we really thought that it might be the opportunity to really take a pause, listen to our members, and really engage in a conversation to really figure out how do we position AGC for the next 100 years.
I know in our conversations you've really made an emphasis on the importance of the mission that drives organizations, and you personally have a passion for that. How did that particular inclination that you have drive your work with the AGC of California in the past 12 months?
Well, missions are vital. They really are. They're important to how we look at aligning our services, structuring our organizations, and really making sure that we can actually look towards outcomes. And so that was actually where we started with those conversations, was asking, why do we exist as AGC? And through the conversations with our members, through people who have been a part of the industry, the construction industry that is, we really came to understand that we had to readjust our mission statement to be aspirational, to also be something that would be relevant for the next 100 years of this organization, really the industry. So we came up with a whole new mission statement last year that was adopted by the organization.
So let's dive into that. why don't you just state for us here what that mission is?
Sure. So here at AGC of California, we believe that the construction industry is vital to the success of California. Together, our members actively create opportunities to build and strengthen our state. We are passionate about shaping policy, improving industry relationships, and developing our workforce.
Okay, just for the audience here, Peter did not read that. Now, just this is a simple point here. I work with a lot of different organizations, helping them craft their purpose statements. And if you, as the leader of your company, can't simply state that purpose statement, then you may need to work on the clarification of that. So thank you for that, Peter. Now, you said something here that absolutely struck me, because when I think of California, I think of Facebook, Google, Hollywood, maybe Disneyland. I don't necessarily think of construction. You're making a bold statement here. We believe the construction industry is vital to the success of California. Now tell me, why is that?
The truth of it, Eric, is that without construction, there is no economy in California. We are the foundation on which the entire economy of California is built upon. We are Industry 1. You cannot have farms, you cannot have Hollywood, you cannot have a Facebook if you don't have the infrastructure, the roads, the buildings, all that allows people to do the work they do. We aren't doing this out in fields, sitting under trees, building Facebook. So the opportunities really are around whether or not we have construction growing in California. So we are the foundation. We are what allows other economies to be built upon, because we create not just the physical structures, but all of the infrastructure that allows other economies to start.
So do you think that perspective is something that is generally held in the business community and in the political community?
Absolutely not.
Tell me about that.
So I think we're sometimes the overlooked industry. In a lot of sectors, especially in what we're seeing in the schools right now, is we're kind of seen as the career of last resort instead of the career of choice. The truth is we have great careers. We have great opportunities. But with that, it's because we're seen as manual labor. Yeah. And that manual labor sometimes is looked down upon because you're using your hands and you're not thinking per se, or you're outside in the sun, toiling in some, the adjectives really around it are what unfortunately define it as almost a negative. Right. The truth is we have great jobs. They pay well, and they are tangibles that exist well beyond us. The structures that we build, the buildings and the roads and the bridges that are here, the dams that provide us water, and flood control. These are things that without it, again, society can't exist or function. And so we need to reestablish, which is why this statement in our mission, it's what we lead with. It's a bold statement. It's a passionate statement. And we plant the flag proudly to remind everybody that without us, without construction, without the construction industry, there is no California and there's no future for California. Because let's be clear, if the roads don't work, right, if we don't get the broadband to where we need it to go, we're not going to have those businesses be able to function here. We will see the future generations having to choose states that have the infrastructure. And so we want California to be the choice or the state of choice that all businesses can say, we want to be in California.
Now, that's very interesting, because it seems like in California at the moment, there is somewhat of an exodus of businesses. And, driven by policy decisions and driven by at least the perception of the environment here. What are you doing, and what is AGC doing to try and shift some of that ground that seems to be almost, against the development of businesses at times?
Right. So there's a lot that we have to do. And that's in the shaping policy arena that we talk about in our mission, as well as one of our passion points or our pillars. We have to be talking to the legislature and the municipalities about policies that are going to support businesses in general, but policies that are going to be investments in the future. And that's infrastructure. And so I will tell you, SB 1, which we passed in 2017, is a $5 billion a year investment in infrastructure. And that's just maintaining the infrastructure. That's not new infrastructure, but we have a $150 billion backlog. That's a billion with a B, on our roads and bridges and infrastructure that exists today, which is causing traffic congestion, which is also causing increases in fees and services when you look at development. So part of how local government is solving their problem is putting more fees on building,
right,
whether it's commercial or residential, to fix the infrastructure around it. Well, the truth is we've been deferring maintenance on our infrastructure, not investing in our future. So SB1 was a key mechanism that has allowed us to have indefinitely $5 billion and index to be what $5 billion bought in 2017 into the future. So it'll grow as we need it to. That is lockbox, so the legislature can't move those monies.
That's right.
But that has been a huge issue for us.
Now, it's interesting because you talk about planting your flag with the mission statement. Last year, you definitely planted your flag as an organization in terms of the Proposition 6.
Absolutely. So Proposition 6 was to repeal that SB1.
That's right, yeah.
And so we were part of the coalition that opposed it, the No on Prop 6. And AGC members collectively raised over $9 million of the $45 million campaign. So that's 20% of that whole campaign. We made a huge investment. We staked our claim and said we will stand for California's future.
Now that's interesting because, and again, just another note is that the mission statement that you crafted last year was then put into practical action. And that's just another shout out here as far as if you're running your business here, if you're going to be taking the time to craft a mission statement, the next step, if you're going to have any credibility as a leader, is to put that into practical action. And so speaking of that, the next part of your mission statement is together our members actively create opportunities to build and strengthen our state. So tell me, what do you guys mean by that?
So really it's about that opportunities to build. When our members are building, whether that's a road, a building, a bridge, underground infrastructure, when they're out there building and creating those opportunities, we're working.
Yep.
That means we're employing people. We have people on our job sites, but it also means California is growing. And so that's how we're strengthening the state at the same time, so that when our members are actively creating those opportunities, when our members are really basically creating jobs and employing people and putting money into circulation into the economy. Therefore, our state is in a much better place. It's positioning the state to be able to be strengthened and succeed and bring about that bigger statement that we said right before it, right? California's success. And so California's future is built upon whether or not we are building. When we are not building, California is not growing.
Now, this is what's unique, I think, about the construction industry that we as an industry have to do a better job of communicating is that, when we think about California, we think about all the high-tech jobs that are available and, a kid can get out of college and be making six figures at Google real fast. And, one of my buddies, he just achieved one of his lifetime dreams of getting hired by Google. But the construction industry is for everybody. So whether you are a hands-on guy or gal who just wants to get out in the field and build stuff, or if you're a conceptual thinker who likes to design killer buildings and use the latest and the most cutting-edge technology to build those buildings, there's a place for you in the construction industry.
That's absolutely right. You said it perfectly, Eric. We have a place for all people here. We need people who are willing to go through an apprentice program and learn a trade or a craft. We have people, though, who need to go through and get more certifications or even a degree. We have people who are going to need lifetime careers and show evolution and development in those careers because there's a constant need for us.
That's right. And you think about that evolution and development because you can start off, you can graduate from high school, go through apprenticeship program, get into the field, 18, 19, 20 years old. And from the field, you can develop all the way into the office, understanding every aspect of the business. And so there's not only just a deep, ability to develop a skill in one area, but there's an opportunity to develop skills and competencies across a wide range of areas.
Absolutely. And the truth is that there is no cap on anyone in the industry.
There you go.
You can start as an apprentice and end as a CEO.
Right on. And it's funny because I think of so many of my clients, so many of them, man, I have this one that just popped into my head. These guys started their business with their bags on their hips, out of their little truck, and they've grown it to a business that employs over 400 people and has a deep impact in the community. And these guys, neither of them ever graduated from college.
Exactly right.
So moving on here now. We talked earlier about your involvement there with the No on Prop 6 campaign, and the last part of the mission statement is this: we are passionate about shaping policy, improving industry relationships, and developing our workforce. So what are you doing practically, specifically to achieve those three pillars that you line out there?
Absolutely. So we've been spending a lot of time over 2018 and even now through 2019 evaluating and talking with our members about the services that align with that mission. And we were very intentional. Our members were very intentional with the words they chose in that. Shaping policy, not just saying advocacy, right? Because advocacy, yes, that's a part of shaping policy, but the truth is...
Tell me the distinction then, just real quick. How do you distinguish between shaping policy and advocacy?
So advocacy is a very broad term that many, I think, can fall into. And so we don't want to just show up and talk about why something isn't good or why something is good. The truth is that we actually should be at the table shaping the policy itself.
Okay.
So when words are put to paper and they become laws or ordinances or regulations, our voice needs to be part of that.
So let me ask you this. As you personally, what kind of experience do you have shaping policy so that you can have, more than just an advocacy position?
So my background, for those who don't know, is started in politics. So I used to be a chief of staff to U.S. Congressman in Washington, D.C., spent many years back there writing policy, working with constituencies and groups just like the AGC of America back there, on direct policies that were being crafted. And so what I can tell you is those who came and just complained didn't get much out of it. Those who came and worked towards solutions in the language, we were able to find carve-outs. We were able to find words that we could insert or take out, and those words have great meaning. And so even if we couldn't stop a bad bill, we can make a bad bill better. And every day, our goal is to figure out ways in which we can improve upon a situation, especially when at times we're up against a tidal wave that's not going to allow us to actually win the fight, but can we make it better?
So now that's very interesting because that really, it speaks to the often defensive position, it seems, that the industry and business in general takes in California. And yet it acknowledges that business may not be always the top priority in balance with government, but there is a way for business to grow its influence.
Right. So let's put it this way. Business, the industry, we're on defense in California. That is a true statement. But just like any sports analogy that you look at, there's the idea of being defensive in the sense of reacting to the offense or being a proactive defense and anticipating the offense and stopping them from moving the ball.
Okay. So kind of like being the New England Patriots against the Rams this year.
Very much so.
The Rams, the highest scoring offense, I think, in the NFL, only scored 3 points. So that's interesting about shaping policy. So specifically, what is AGC of California doing to shape policy at the moment? Let's say 2019 here in California.
So we have 3 full-time legislative advocates who are tracking the over 2,700 bills that were introduced just this year in 2019.
Yep.
And of those 2,700, luckily only about 500 touch the construction industry. So we're going through those 500 bills now to look at what's real in the sense of, is this going to be a bill that will actually move? Is this a bill that's probably most likely dead just based on the language and the authors, and it's more for show? So we're evaluating those bills.
Right.
And then we have our legislative committee, statewide committee, that meets to actually then go through our target bills once identified by our advocates and look at ways then, okay, is there any salvageable component of this bill? If so, how do we make it better? If not, how do we stop it if we can, or how do we work around to help the author either delay it or pull it all together? And so there are lots of ways of stopping a bill. There are also lots of ways of improving a bill. And there are also ways of pushing legislation. And so, in this situation, for the most part in California, what we're doing is we are going through all of those legislative pieces. Additionally, when we're looking at shaping policy, there are cities across the state that are looking at putting project labor agreements, PLAs, out there. And AGC's standpoint has always been, we don't believe in project labor agreements in general unless we as the association are at the table negotiating the terms. Because one of our jobs in that second kind of second passion point that we talk about in our mission is improving industry relationships. Okay. And that is a little bit broader, but part of that is the relationships we have with labor.
Right.
We have for over 98 years, now in our 99th year, been negotiating with labor and coming to terms with master labor agreements or collective bargaining agreements that then go to the DIR and are house there. We have a history of working with labor partners as management and labor coming to terms on how work will be done.
Right.
Project labor agreements takes management out of the process.
Right.
And so it's done with a bureaucrat and labor. And bureaucrats don't have the history or the understanding of what we as the general contractor or even the subcontractor have to do when it comes to delivering on the job site.
Right.
And so when you negotiate terms that may not fit in with the agreed upon terms with those crafts that we have with our MLAs, it's inappropriate.
Okay.
And so we're fighting those. So there are right now in Santa Barbara, there's a PLA where we are actively fighting this to get a seat at the table to say, let's craft it. In the Sacramento region with the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, we're actually getting a seat at the table to talk about their next workforce development agreement, or another fancy word for PLA.
Right.
And down in Fresno, we're actively at the table. They brought us in to help negotiate. So in Sacramento and Fresno, through our work in building those relationships with elected officials and with municipal leaders on the agency side, we've been invited to the table. They understand our position, and they understand why it's important that we have a seat at the table so that we can help shape the policy in the PLA and the terms there so that we can actually have what would be a more mutual agreeable term. That's
interesting. So in improving industry relationships, the aspect of shaping policy is intertwined with that.
Absolutely. You need both.
And I think it's interesting too, because you spoke to how the labor portion of the industry negotiating directly with the agencies and not bringing in the AGC, which is representing the owners of the construction companies and the people who actually run these construction companies. So having that threefold conversation really helps to round out the agreements and the way things are structured.
Right. Because then you have owners, the contractor, and labor. It's really the right kind of triad or trifecta that needs to come together to really negotiate these terms.
So you would say then that the AGC is not antithetical to labor, but wants to bring labor and into the conversation in a positive manner.
We're a partner.
That's right.
In construction, we need all aspects.
That's right.
It's not just about the GC or the subcontractor or even just about labor. We won't succeed as an industry unless we are working together. And really coming together. We know we have differences. We've got to work those differences out at the negotiating table together. No piece can be excluded from that conversation, though, for this to be a workable long-term process.
Excellent, excellent. Now, it's interesting. Last year, the AGC's focus was very much on the Proposition 6, which is an infrastructure focus. What would you say are the legislative or the policy things that you're focusing on in terms of, I know a lot of people are concerned with the lack of housing here in California, the lack of affordable housing. What is it the AGC is doing to address those kinds of issues?
So in truth, AGC is focused mostly on commercial construction. Okay. So the residential side, we work with our sister entity over at the California Building Industry Association, CBIA.
Yep.
But we do a lot on the infrastructure side, because infrastructure, you can't build homes unless you have roads that get to those homes.
That's right.
So we do build those roads. We do bring, electrical and utility work right out to those homes. And so there is a lot of that does have to happen with our kind of contractors. But it is true that there is a need for housing, and we absolutely are part of the conversations. The concern we have in truth this year, and as much as we hate to continue to have to harp on SB1 and the no on 6,
right.
Well, this governor and a member of the assembly have proposed legislation that would actually halt distributions of SB1 funding if municipalities are not in compliance with affordable housing guidelines that the state issues, which would then stop the circulation of funding that we just approved and basically spent 2 years of our lives trying to say is lockbox the legislature can't touch, and now the legislature is going and trying to find a workaround to touch our money. So sadly, all in the name of affordable housing, but the truth is transportation or infrastructure funding has nothing to do with affordable housing. It's a carrot stick that they're trying to use and leverage resources and work that the industry should be doing right now. So there are solutions out there in truth around affordable housing that can work. But the way that's going to work is when we actually look at the entitlement process in CEQA. And so there are CEQA documents and CEQA reform that AGC is looking at, because universally CEQA is a problem to building. It adds cost and time, more time than not, which has a double cost effect on us, and to the owners, those who would develop the land. That is problematic for the long-term viability of California's affordable housing and really our continued growth strategy around infrastructure and commercial development.
So it's interesting because I think just what you just shared here really speaks to the importance of an association like the AGC because, last year when Prop 6 did not pass, there was sort of a rejoicing in the industry, right? And we're like, the battle's won. But the war, so to speak, just continues on and on and on.
As long as we have a government, we have to be watching that government.
There you go. That's excellent. So then we're passionate about shaping policy, improving industry relationships. And then the last pillar there is developing our workforce.
Right.
Tell me more about that.
And it's intentional that we said developing our workforce versus workforce development.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So tell me, that's okay.
And I'll start with the premise of workforce development has a connotation of we're talking about the next generation. Developing our workforce is current, future. It has no limits.
Right.
And we don't want to put a limit on the workforce that we have. The workforce that is existing right now needs to be supported, and we need to support its development, as well as the pipeline that needs to come in.
Right.
And we do. I mean, our the issues that we continue here as our number one issue, as we looked in our 2019 optimism survey, the issue that our industry is concerned about is whether or not they're going to be able to find the labor.
That's right.
To accomplish the work. So we do have to look at short-term and long-term needs and gaps that we are seeing in the industry.
What is one specific thing you think that the industry as a whole and AGC in particular could continue to focus on in order to build that pipeline of talent coming through the high schools and the universities?
So, Eric, I think there's going to be an opportunity for a second segment at some point in time with you to talk about a program that we're launching this summer called Build California.
Beautiful.
And so the issue around Build California, or the issue that Build California is going to address, we kind of started with this, about that statement of pride that we planted and why we are saying we are the number one or the foundational industry within California. We have lost the war on perception.
That's right.
We have allowed others to define our narrative as an industry. We have to take it back.
That's right.
And so Build California is all about how we change the perceptions of not just the future generations, but the influencers of those generations.
That's right.
So candidly, millennials are influencing the next generation because of their teachers, and they're also now their parents.
That's right.
So,
sorry.
Right? We're not just going after millennials to join us.
That's right.
It's their children and the Gen Z that's coming in next.
Yep.
But the problem is that we have allowed the perception of the contractor to either be the greedy contractor who's trying to bilge and get as much money out of somebody.
Change order someone to death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or we've allowed the concept of and I apologize that this sounds crass, but the plumber with his jeans falling down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the old plumber crack.
And so
I'll say it for you, Peter.
but that is the perception. And when we have our own members who have children going through these schools and a career counselor telling them, you don't want to go and be a welder because they cap out at $55,000, which is an untrue statement.
That's right.
Their ignorance around the industry is not necessarily because they don't want to know. It's because we have done a poor job of making sure people know. And so when you look at, we're modeling Build California, Eric, after an industry that had a very negative perception as well and took it by the horns.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the U.S. military.
Okay, right on.
U.S. military starting in the mid to late 90s and really through the early 2000s, they changed their campaign and their strategy on talking about what it is to enlist, what it is to join and be part of our, whether it's the Army, always start with Army.
Yep.
Army, Navy, Air Force or Marines or even Coast Guard.
Right.
They have changed that perception. The Army Strong commercials, the Army of One, all of us can talk about and probably even hum along to some of those things. But the pride that they instilled in it and the conversations that they were willing to have. There were commercials where you saw the fretting parent, having the conversation going, I don't know if this is the right thing, but talking through it through that commercial so that we could understand as a society, really what are the opportunities in enlisting and in joining the military, because they are greater. And so their enlistments went up.
Right.
Parents' concerns went down. But here's the problem is we've been polling parents about our industry. they think construction is less safe than joining the military.
Ah,
Our job sites are more dangerous than a war zone.
that's what they think.
That's what they think.
Right.
And we have, as long as they're thinking that, what parent is going to say, yes, go into construction?
Right. Right.
There are many a thing that they're going to push them into before you go out into one of our job sites. And it's not to say that's true. I mean, again, my wife she served 2 deployments to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you every day, I wish you were on a job site than in war.
Right.
But when we have lost that fight, we have lost the perception battle. And so we have to change this. And it starts with that perception battle. It starts with how we tell our story and take back our narrative. And Build California is going to allow us to do that at all levels. Not just targeting the young person who we want to go into an apprentice program.
Right.
But really talking to everyone out there so that the perception of the industry changes, so that they understand that though I have 2 fancy degrees on my wall, my members will drive a better car than me every single day.
Now it's interesting here because I think I sense in our culture that there's a deep appeal to the camaraderie, the sacrifice, the challenge associated with being in the military. And I see that because of the types of podcasts that are popular, the types of books that are written, especially from veterans coming back from Iraq. And I think that there is such a strong parallel between the way the military is structured and operates and the way that construction companies are structured and operate. A strong positive parallel. That sense of camaraderie, that sense of self-sacrifice, that sense of doing something meaningful and impactful is very much deeply rooted in the construction industry.
You nailed it on the head there. There is so much commonality there. What the military has been able to do is show the growth and opportunities of a career. And that's where we have failed. People see us as a dead-end job or a career of last resort. Mm-hmm. And that if you go through a craft, that's all you're going to be able to do. Remember,
Right.
We started this with, you can start as an apprentice and end as a CEO.
Right on.
They don't know that.
Right on.
And so we have to change that story and change that narrative so that people see the opportunities for their children to find careers with growth, with challenge, where they are going to learn skills and continue to develop themselves as humans throughout that career.
That's very interesting. Developing. That's great. So that was really awesome. As we're wrapping up here, I think what's coming across very strongly here is the passion of yourself and the organization of AGC to really affect change and to really build up and magnify the positive impact of the construction industry. As we're wrapping up here, what are some actions that you would encourage the leaders of construction companies, the CEOs who are out there every day? What are some actions that you would encourage them to take?
Their voice is needed.
Mm-hmm.
So our industry has been silent for too long. AGC, we support the entirety of the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and we will continue to do so. But we're only as strong as the voices of the industry that lend themselves to us. And so we encourage all people in construction to really look at how they can get engaged, how they can get involved in fighting the right fights, and aligning themselves around a mission similar to ours.
Right.
If you believe that the construction industry is vital to the success of California, if you believe that through shaping policy, improving industry relationships, and developing our workforce, we can create more opportunities to build and strengthen our state, then we want you to engage and plug in doing those actions. Start shaping policy. Start developing stronger relationships. Help develop that workforce. There are lots of ways to plug in, whether it's with AGC or with other great organizations out there. Mm-hmm. But we need the industry to stand mm-hmm. and to unify their voice and make sure that it is being heard across this great state.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Peter, I really appreciate your time here today. As we're wrapping up here, I always like to ask my guests, and I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite restaurant?
Eric, it all depends on what kind of food you want, but I will tell you, I said my wife was in the military. We were for 4 years stationed in the great state of Hawaii.
Right on.
I will tell you, there is a drive-in that has the best Korean barbecue and a plate lunch that you will ever find. Okay. Soon's Korean barbecue. Oh my God.
Say it again.
Soon's Korean barbecue.
Okay. How do you spell Soon's?
Soon. And it is right in the middle of Red Hill, near Aiea and, kind of towards the Aloha Stadium. It is It is top notch. And
beautiful.
It is the first place we go to when we land in Honolulu.
That's beautiful. So if you're in Honolulu, you've got to go to Soon's. All right, Peter. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. And, again, thank you for your involvement, and thank you for your commitment to the industry.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.